Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Cedarville Stories Podcast. I'm Mark Weinstein, and joining me today on the program are Ken Atkinson, an engineering lab technician at Cedarville School of Engineering, and Brian Reiff, a 2025 graduate of Cedarville's engineering program. Together, they have an inspiring story of using their engineering education and skills to serve the people of Zimbabwe. I really think you're going to enjoy today's program. So let's go to my conversation with Ken Atkinson and Brian Reiff on today's Cedarville Stories Podcast. Well, welcome to the podcast, guys. It's great to have you in studio. And as I'm thinking about this podcast, as I was preparing to put it together, Brian, you're a recent graduate of Cedarville University. So let me begin the conversation with you. Being a freshly minted graduate, what's your feeling like now that you know your academic studies, your undergraduate studies are over with forever?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, think about it, the last, 16 years of my life I've been in school. So, conversing into that is quite difficult, but, it's a relief too.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of work the last 4 years, just, doing an engineering program.
But now it's over with.
It is, yeah. It's hard to think about, but.
Yeah. So where are you originally from and how did you find Cedarville?
Yeah, so I'm from New Jersey. A lot of friends from a local church ended up coming here. So I was kind of looking for a school that had a good engineering program, and that was also a private Christian school. So not many fit the bill. So that's how I found Cedarville. Okay, when you think about your 1,000 days, that's for those who aren't familiar with that terminology, that's equivalent to 4 years at Cedarville. What was your experience like? Did it measure up to what you thought it would? Yeah, I enjoyed it. I liked the small classes, for the engineering program. I got to know, everyone in my class. Yeah. I made a lot of good friends in the dorm life.
What dorm did you live in?
I lived in all of them almost. I started in Rickard, moved to McChesney, then the Parker, then the Murdoch. So
you did live in a lot of them. So what's next for you? Are you looking at grad school or are you looking to go right into your first career position?
Right into the first career position, yeah.
Do you know what it is?
Almost. I think I'll be finding out this week, so I'm excited.
Can you give us a little heads up?
Yeah, so I would be a service engineer for a company called Acceleron. I'd basically be going on ships into port and looking at engine parts and kind of maintaining them, communicating with other engineers about problems.
So let me switch to Ken, who's joining us as well. Ken's a former missionary. Where did you serve? And then actually before that, how long have you been on staff at Cedarville?
This is my third academic year. I came at the beginning of the year 3 years ago.
And so tell me about your missionary work. What did you do? Where were you stationed? How did you serve?
So most of the time I served at the home office, used to be called headquarters, but it's not called that anymore. For TEAM, it's the Evangelical Alliance Mission. For the last 10 to 15 years, I've been involved with one of their ministries called Kuranda Mission Hospital. And I spent about a year and a half there before I came here.
So Kuranda's in Zimbabwe?
Kuranda is in Zimbabwe, yes.
And what were you doing at the hospital?
I went there initially because they were running out of water. And the technical missionary that was there had been blocked from getting back into the country for quite a while. And so he came and helped me in the U.S. And then he went back and they had water trouble and he knew that I had some experience with that. So he called and said, it's time for you to come help me.
And we're going to talk more about water on today's podcast and the hospital for sure. But as you think back to your 3 years at Cedarville as a lab technician in the School of Engineering, you get to work closely with the students. You interact not just on projects, but just probably personally too. Mm-hmm. What have been some of your highlights and opportunities?
I would say that it's all been so consistently positive that it's hard to pick out. I have some students that were shop stewards and worked with me, and some of them went to Zimbabwe with me for 6 weeks, and we worked on projects there. So those were some, I guess, relationships that grew deeper. But in general, interaction is so positive compared to other workplaces I've been in that it's hard to say, is there a highlight? Well, it's all been good.
Yeah. So when you think back to your years as a missionary in Kuranda at the hospital, what was going on that motivated you or wanted you to get our students involved in what needs to be done in Kuranda?
Well, initially, I've had 2 daughters that went to school here.
Okay.
I came to visit one for her birthday, my wife and I did, and to recruit engineering students for missions. And in the process, I got recruited to work here because my assignment with team was just about up. Engineering students or engineers and missions don't go together all the time. It seems like engineers are more task-oriented than missions-oriented. And so it's hard to find technical engineering type people that want to do full-time missions.
Yeah.
And so Cedarville is a great place to look for those kind of people.
Right. So how have you been able to teach that blend of mission-minded and engineering-minded to our students and even to our faculty?
I think they're all interested, but maybe just not aware of it all the time.
Okay.
So just presenting opportunities.
So with your background in missions and at Kuranda Hospital with water initially, and we'll get to the Earth Mover project in a second, but let's start with the water filtration project. Walk us through the initial challenges that the Kuranda people were facing, the hospital was facing in accessing clean water, and why was that such a critical need that you wanted to continue trying to help?
Basically, you need clean water to run a hospital. And they had initially started out 60, 70 years ago using river water, and they didn't really have clean water. Then they were able to drill wells when that technology moved into the area. So they had several years with good, clean water from the wells, but then the wells basically went dry, and it wasn't an option to drill deeper. That's how I got involved, is they asked me to come assess, was there a way to make the river water potable for the hospital. So,
and how did you do that?
Built a typical municipal water treatment plant on a small scale.
And what does that all consist? Because I don't even know what it consists of. It seems really grand.
There's just different stages of it. You have intake where you have to bring the water in consistently, and then you have to treat it with chemicals and get most of the suspended solids to drop out, and then you have to filter it. Basically, you have to get the water clean enough that you can chlorinate it. If it's not clean, then all of the pathogens just hide in the debris that's in the water, and the chlorine doesn't treat them.
Has that process or that project been completed, and how long did it take?
Depends on what you want to say completed is. So it was kind of cobbled together initially just to get them water in a hurry. And it's an ongoing project to make it sustainable and user-friendly.
Will this be an ongoing project for civil engineering, or?
I hope so. There's plenty to do.
What else has to be done?
They developed a filtration system that has the potential to be used all around the world in developing countries. That's very economical and feasible to build and keep running when you don't have funds.
Did our students build one of these systems, or did they just work on what you had started before you had come to Cedarville?
They took that on. They actually built a simulation plant in the civil engineering building that was a representation of what they had, and then they experimented with it for about a year here and developed a system they could take there and build there.
Okay. My final question on the water filtration at this point is, it sounded like a very meaningful and important project. How has it impacted the people of Kuranda?
I'm hoping that it's reduced their labor intensity of making clean water and also made it consistently available. I have not been back since it's been in operation, but my understanding from communication is that's happening.
Are you in regular communication with them, and when are you going back?
I'm in irregular communication with them. I should be regular, but too many fires burning. And probably going back when the Earth Mover it has arrived there and it's ready to be assembled and trained. And
that's a great transition to the Earth Mover part of the story. Brian, let's bring you back in to the conversation. So for our listeners, tell us, what is the Earth Mover project? What was it all about?
The solution is they basically have a tractor in Kuranda, and they have a small 3-point blade to kind of repair roads there. But for the most part, they make roads by, shovels and pickaxes and stuff, breaking up rocks, and that type of thing. So the solution is to kind of bring something that we can ship over to them that can be used by the tractor that they have ready to repair the roads without manual labor, hopefully. So
how big will the finished product be? Either one of you?
Yeah. So, we have it almost completed right now. It's about 10 feet wide, like maybe 20 feet long or so. And then it's 7,000 or 8,000 pounds. So it's quite big.
How are you going to get it there?
It's going to be taken apart. It won't be that big when it goes.
It's obvious that the project was to make better roads. Is that for the hospital or for the area? And why was that important?
It would be first in the hospital, and it's a fairly big compound.
Okay.
And they have a rainy season that a lot of times you'll have a 6-foot deep ditch running down the middle of a road from the road being washed out. And so there's regular repairs. Part of the reason they have those repairs is because the road wasn't built right in the first place.
Sure.
So this will make it possible for them to build them correctly.
Is it kind of like a bulldozer?
It's a pole grader, I guess.
What's that? Tell me what that is.
Yeah, so like a bulldozer, you can imagine the blade is on the front of the machine, right?
Right.
So here, obviously, we can't really modify the tractor they have. So we instead make a device that, has a blade behind the machine to pull it behind, of course.
What's the climate and culture like in Kuranda?
It's rural Zimbabwe. Everyone in there more or less is a subsistence farmer. Okay. They're very poor. They on a bad crop year, they face starvation. The cost of living is higher than it is here.
Really?
But the average daily wage is $15 a day. So the only way you survive is you grow your own food and make everything you need.
So what's next for Cedarville ongoing projects with Kuranda Hospital? Are any other projects in the works, or what's going on in that direction?
I have a long list of projects that I wrote down that I'd like to do someday. The group we took last year from here, we went with a list of things that we were going to try and do. And when we got there, the hospital administration came to us and said, "Could you do this?" So we didn't do any of the things we planned to, really.
So I want to ask both of you this question, but I want to start with Brian. So as a student then, working on this project, first of all, did you work on it both years or just 1 year?
Just 1 year.
Okay, 1 year, this year.
It's our senior design project.
Senior design, okay.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges that you felt you faced and you had to overcome?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. So I'll start here. Basically, last year's team came up with a pretty good design for the frame of the machine.
Okay. But
they didn't have some parts like the blade, which are kind of crucial for finishing, a real design. So kind of trying to source those parts on a budget for something that, is not really a common item was quite difficult at the beginning of the year. And then just working throughout the year to come up with the design that would be strong enough was a decent challenge. But I would say the biggest challenge was constructing it. We basically did that with 3 other guys and me in 1 semester. So
where did you get the materials?
Yeah, that's a good question. Last year's team got some of the material from, I think it was an Amish farmer or something like that. And then we've been kind of scouring Facebook Marketplace for other used parts, just trying to pull on like his farmer friend, for example, too, who gave us like a free axle for the machine. We've been trying to do it as cheaply as possible, obviously, because it could be an expensive thing to make. So
do you know how much it cost?
Yeah, it was so last year's team spent about $2,000 on their material, and we spent maybe $4,500. So
total.
Okay. Yeah, so $6,500 between the 2 years.
Okay. Where does that money come from? How does it get funded to pay for this?
Yeah, so some of it's from Cedarville, but also some of it was from some donors, Mm-hmm. And then another one was a Tau Beta Pi Association gave a grant to last year's team. So
when you think about what you've done your senior year, Brian, and then the other students as well, and then Ken, when you think of both projects collectively, have you seen or do you foresee that these projects not only are going to provide physical help to the Kuranda Hospital and the area, but opens doors spiritually for the gospel to be shared?
I believe it does. Yeah. Again, physically, I think it's a great help, but also as Mr. Atkinson mentioned, getting engineers over there, kind of getting in their ear that there's jobs like this available for them, or work that needs to be done in other countries, or any even at home missions. Again, that's kind of something that even me as an engineer didn't really think about very much. We're kind of goal oriented, get through school, get through this, get a job. But
right.
Sometimes you got to slow down and think about that. There's more to it, like applying yourself in missions.
So how did this project change your perspective and change your life? Because it sounds like it did.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I got a lot of hands-on experience from it. I think that was a good thing for even just for a normal job, but also, again, opening my mind up to there are other people in the world. Sometimes we get caught up in America and ourselves. So kind of seeing the challenges over there and what we can do to help them out. Do
you see that you're going to be able to take that mindset and that heart into your first career job?
I think so, yeah. I think that did help me a lot.
That's great.
I've seen it come to fruition in the fact that of the group that went last year to be on the civil team, there was a mechanical engineer and a civil engineer that got married. And they both took good engineering jobs in the area where they were from.
Mm-hmm.
And they both were highly missions minded. Mm-hmm. And so now they are basically getting their church behind them and getting ready to quit their engineering jobs and go to Kuranda for a year or more to provide the technical help they need. So I've seen it, firsthand as the students get involved and see that, hey, this technical ability that the Lord's given me can be used directly in missions if I want to.
So it's really encouraging to know that this isn't just a physical tool, but it's used for spiritual development and value and need. Was it difficult to open the eyes to the students to the spiritual component?
I think everyone that went is considering how, to spend the rest of their life in regards to missions and the abilities God's given them. And as far as the witness there that this provides, been going to Kuranda, but Zimbabwe for 10 to 15 years. And so I have had access to a vehicle and would have to drive into the capital quite often to either pick up people or pick up parts or whatever. And when I first started doing it, I quite often got nervous because people would start approaching the vehicle. And it had Kuranda signs on it. But what I learned is that without exception, those people came and they wanted to know how Kuranda was doing, and they would share a story about how Kuranda had blessed either them or a relative or somebody they knew had been treated well by Kuranda. And so it just got to be, pretty much commonplace that whenever I drove someplace that I would get stopped and people would want to know how the doctor so-and-so was doing or tell me a story about how Kuranda had blessed them. So.
Well, that's encouraging to hear that the hospital and the doctors really had a serious impact in the lives of the residents, not just maybe from a health perspective, but even from a personal perspective. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, it was definitely more than just they cured me of whatever my ill was. They had been impacted by the hospital.
So our time is up for today's podcast. I want to thank you for joining me. It's I'm really thrilled to learn about the two projects these are just some of the projects that our engineering students do. I know there are other projects that they work on, but having a global impact like you're having, not just meeting a physical need, but a spiritual need, is really encouraging. And I encourage our listeners and viewers to pray for the completion of these projects so that they can be sent, or the earth mover can be successfully delivered to the Kuranda Hospital and be used to meet their needs. And also, if you're looking for a school where you want to study engineering from a biblical worldview, I want to encourage you to check out Cedarville's website, cedarville.edu, and learn more about what we offer. It's a high-quality academic program in our engineering program, And I encourage you to check out cedarville.edu to learn more. Ken and Brian, I want to thank you for joining me this week on the podcast. Congratulations on being a graduate, and best wishes to you in your life.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Cedarville Stories Podcast, brought to you by Cedarville University. Be sure to come back next week when we'll share another Cedarville story for God's glory.